But yeah, so Lannon, I just wanted to talk to you today about a few different bits and pieces to do with Substack, to do with digital marketing, paid ads, all that kind of stuff. I love the kind of stuff you've been talking about recently on Substack and on other platforms as well. I think we actually have kind of a similar setup, you and I, because we're both on quite a few platforms simultaneously. Like you're on TikTok and LinkedIn and everything as well, and YouTube. And I'm sort of trying to maintain those presences as well if I can. I suppose that's maybe the first question actually. How do you find managing all that, managing that sort of online ecosystem that you have going on?
I think it is a constant learning process, I would say, trying to manage it all.
Mm,
I go back and forth all the time because we see so many things. I'm sure you see the exact same messages in your feed of all of the automation and AI experts talking about, just repurpose your content. It's so easy. But at the end of the day, it's not as easy as people like to think it is.
mm,
I wrote a post over a year ago and it was like how to post five or more pieces of content while working full time. And it's generated me a few $100s on Medium. But it's like, okay, we can take we have our long form article on Substack, we can record it, we can do it as a YouTube video, we can pull the audio as a podcast, we can create all these clips, we can repost all our short form content. And
mm,
it sounds so simple, but there's so much complexity to it that people just overlook. I
mm,
even had a post yesterday when I posted about I uninstalled all the apps, and they're like, well, why don't you just repurpose your content? It's so easy. But the thing is when things aren't contextually relevant to the platform,
mm,
they just don't perform. And one of the things that I love about Substack is there's no character limits. So I can write a note, but I might not be able to post it to X because it's too long.
mm,
Or it might be relevant to Substack, but it's not relevant to my LinkedIn audience because that audience is a little bit different.
mm,
My audience on Facebook is a little bit more from like the time when I was like really heavy into ads. And now I talk a lot more about entrepreneurship and content creation.
mm,
So we can repurpose, but repurposing for just the sake of repurposing, I think is not quite as effective. And just putting stuff out there, I think maintaining a little bit of a presence can be beneficial, but I don't think it's ever going to be optimal for growth.
mm,
So a big thing for me is I've gone through the extremes of doing everything. I ran an experiment of like posting 20 notes a day on Substack. I've posted on every single platform. I had a video go viral on TikTok. So I've done like a lot of different stuff. I ran two podcasts and when I was publishing daily episodes. So like I've done a lot of little experiments in my time.
mm,
And the what I try and tell people is if you have a pre-existing audience elsewhere, so let's say you started on Substack and you've got an audience on LinkedIn.
mm,
Well, yeah, definitely it makes a lot of sense to continue to maintain that presence.
mm.
But trying to grow from scratch on multiple platforms is
Mm.
very difficult.
Yeah.
The cross-pollination of content can be done. It can also help maintain just an awareness. Like I'll share my long form content across LinkedIn and Facebook, driving people back to my Substack
Mm.
because it just lets people know that I'm still there and it draws people in, keeps people kind of consistently reading my content. But I'm not putting effort into growing those platforms right now.
Mm.
I do have intentions of like, I do still think that YouTube is probably one of the strongest things that we can do just from the life of content
Mm.
because of the searchability of the platform, people watching it on their TVs now, people like replacing Netflix and news with YouTube. I still think there's a lot of benefit there. But what I've really noticed is I've got really fine tuned into like what my capacity and threshold is for what I can realistically maintain.
Mm.
And those things are just outside of that right now. So it's like, I still feel the pull. I want to relaunch my podcast. I
Mm.
want to get my content back onto YouTube. And I probably will, but not until it's at a point where my business has been restructured a little bit, or I'm at a point where it just doesn't feel like it's going to take away from anything else. I
Mm.
want it to be layered on in a beneficial way, not now I'm doing that and now my Substack content is now, watered down because I can't spend as much time there. So
Mm.
now I'm like not really growing optimally on any platform as opposed to shifting my focus. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think it's so contextual to the person, and we go through phases where certain things are going to be more relevant for us, and also the nature of our business too. Like I've talked to some creators on Substack, and I'm like, you probably might be better off writing on LinkedIn with who you're trying to serve because that audience is probably on Substack, but it might take you 3 to 5 years before you see some substantial growth just because it's like so narrow.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's kind of how I kind of look at it for myself.
Mm. No, I mean, everything you said there is spot on, and I would agree in the sense that I find that whenever I try to maintain my presence on multiple platforms, it can be done. But as you say, none of it's optimal. If you focus on just one at a time and just kind of grow there and put all your efforts into that and figure out the best possible way of growing there and just getting the most out of a platform, um, that you feel like you're narrowing your focus, but you're actually just creating a more targeted stream of audience growth, I think. Like for me, I do repurpose things a little bit, and I agree with what you say about how certain content just doesn't translate very well across certain platforms. It's definitely the case. Um, yeah, and I think just if you can find a way of I guess the question I have for you, Landon, is do you create specific content for each individual platform whenever you do go on those other platforms? Do you create like TikTok only video for TikTok or a YouTube only video for YouTube? Is it just purely individual for each platform?
I've done a lot of different things,
Mm,
experimenting in the past. So from just like, okay, I'm going to just take this video, I'm going to use AI to pull 5 clips from it, and I'm just going to post those versus I'm going to craft this specifically for this platform.
mm,
And typically I find that the intentionality performs better.
mm,
So we kind of have this like, it's more like a spectrum. It's like we have like optimal on one side and we have like good enough on one side, and we can flow in between there. And sometimes a lot of the time, I think good enough is fine just to kind of be there because so like just as well as I do, we have no idea what's gonna hit.
mm.
Like I got, a few 100,000 views and 5,000 followers from one video on Substack or on
Wow.
TikTok when I was like, want to create a good headline, like type this into ChatGPT, and it was like 15 seconds and it just like blew up. But it was like the timing of when I did it, ChatGPT had just been released and everybody was just searching for it.
Mm,
So, and if we think about it, like just little things like the language of talking about growth, when I post that on Substack, I'm referencing writers and I'm referencing Substack. I can take that same message and post it on LinkedIn, but if I adjust it and I talk to, business owners and LinkedIn, the same things apply, but I can make it contextually relevant. Now, I think that's going to work better, but I don't have a team. So sometimes what I do is I try and mix a little bit. I don't do as much repurposing. Kind of what I do right now is if I see something doing quite well on Substack, I'll take it and repurpose it on kind of the primary places that I'm repurposing right now are um, LinkedIn and Facebook, not as much on TikTok, just because I found I wasn't getting as much value for the work that it was being required to be present there.
mm,
And obviously, right now, the looming ban, like what's going to happen there. There's so much uncertainty with that platform.
mm.
But like I've got a little bit of an audience in all these different places. So like I just launched my book and I put
Yes.
that content out everywhere
Mm,
because I have people that follow me on different platforms. And that's the thing. Like I have people that don't even know what Substack is, but they follow me on Instagram and
mm,
they've shared my book on Instagram, but they don't follow me on LinkedIn because they're only on Instagram. So I definitely think it's more of like a spectrum. And I've gone through where it is contextually relevant. And I think that's always going to perform better. But as solopreneurs, I think it so much comes down to like what's realistic for us.
mm,
And then being like, okay, but just understanding the compromise that we're making. I think it's so important. It's like, I'm going to just use make, and it's going to push these posts out to all of these platforms, but don't think we're going to grow at the same rate across all of them if that was originally written for Substack.
Mm,
So I think it's okay, but I think we have to be aware of kind of like the decision that we're making.
yeah, it's a quality versus quantity kind of argument in some ways, isn't it?
Hmm.
Does do you spread yourself far and wide, but you're what is it? What's the phrase? Like it's like wide and shallow, or narrow and deep, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I wanted to ask about you mentioned Facebook there, and I know that you do, or you have done in the past, maybe you still do now, advertising on Facebook, and you do paid ads and that sort of thing. And
Hmm.
Facebook is actually a platform that you don't hear mentioned just as much as you used to, but I have heard you and a few other creators recently talking about it more again. Do you think Facebook is still just as powerful as it used to be when it comes to reaching an audience and selling a product and growing a brand? Has it kind of had a bit of a like resurgence recently, or has it just kind of always maintained its level of significance, do you think?
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept because I talk to a lot of people that are like Facebook's dead. And I'm
Mm,
like, we have to also understand where our inherent biases are inside of this world. So
mm,
like when I go on social media, all I see is people talking about how to grow businesses because that's what I'm there for and that's the people inside of my small little network, but that's not what most people see when they go on Facebook.
mm.
The reality is that they have 4 billion monthly active users.
Oh,
So it's like half the world's population is consistently using Facebook. So it's like I think we just have to understand those things. Like just because we don't use Facebook doesn't mean that our ideal clients aren't using Facebook. And especially if we're serving an audience that's like 35 or 40 plus,
mm,
well, they're more likely to be active on Facebook and Instagram than they are on TikTok because or Snapchat or WhatsApp because those platforms weren't there when I was coming up. Like when I was in college, we were like just getting, Facebook accounts. And then when I was growing my gym business, like everybody was using Instagram and these things didn't exist.
mm,
But if I'm trying to target 18-year-olds, that's going to adjust kind of the consumer behavior. So
mm,
when I look at Facebook, I definitely think it's an important place to be present. It just depends on what we're trying to achieve.
mm,
So the reason that I try and maintain an organic presence on Facebook is because I've been in business for 20 years. So I've gone to lots of events. I've joined numerous masterminds. I've done so much over the years and been in networking groups
mm,
that I have a lot of people inside of my network that I'm just friends with and
mm,
that follow my content and that will comment or share things. So I always try and just stay top of mind for people by trying to maintain a presence there.
mm,
I haven't tried to push a whole lot in terms of the like organic growth side of things when it comes there. Now, I've heard from just listening, you know, observationally from a few people and listening to people like Gary Vaynerchuk talking about how, like Facebook Reels, like there are people that are getting like substantial reach on these platforms.
mm,
So I do think that there is a pocket that is getting growth. But when it comes to the paid advertising side, it's 100% still works.
mm,
I do kind of like I would say, quote unquote, what pays most of the bills is my paid advertising services. So I work with a number of clients. I do consulting. I mentor media buyers and things like that. I do audits for businesses and help them design marketing strategies that are largely driven through leveraging paid advertising
mm.
and paid social across Facebook and Instagram. It just works.
Okay.
Plain and simple. It works. You can get cheap leads, you can get quality leads. They're constantly changing, and I don't see them going away anytime soon.
Mm,
So I definitely think, especially if we're looking into like the paid side of things, the organic side, especially if I was like starting a brand new business today, I probably wouldn't put too much time into like organic Facebook.
mm,
But if I'm looking to build a business where I'm leveraging paid advertising, I'm 100% looking at, because if you look at like Facebook, like Meta owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So like just through their platform and threads, like you have a lot of ad placements at your disposal to be able to leverage.
mm. Is Facebook ads something that you would say anyone could do in a business sense, or do you need a certain level of competency and understanding about how to actually put a successful ad together.
No, if you like to be completely honestly, like inside of like my book, like the art of modern media buying, I really go into how this is completely changing. Like they're pushing AI features in the platform, which effectively are like breaking down the barrier of skill required to run an ad.
Mm,
Before you used to be like they're interested in this and this and this and they're at this age group and this location and there's all these buttons and like literally now you don't have to press any of those buttons anymore. You still can,
mm,
but they're actually making it harder and harder and harder to even find how to get to the old setup.
mm,
Like the button now says like I want to reduce the size of my audience. That's what you have to click on to be able to get back to like the old setup that we used 2 years ago. So it's really funny. And inside of there, they'll come up with AI iterations on your ad copy. You can even generate AI images for your ads inside of the ad platform. They're not great, but you can just see the direction it's going.
mm,
So I don't think that you need a high level of competency to run ads.
yeah,
The thing that's likely going to make it work is going to come down to two things, which are going to be like your creative, so your whatever you're using for the visual and the ad copy, and your offer.
mm,
Those are going to be the two things that really kind of make it tick. And then when it comes to making money from it, that's where like the business strategy on the back end comes into play, which
mm,
a lot of people don't quite realize that let's say you come to me and you're like, I want to start running paid ads to grow my newsletter, but you don't have any products for sale.
mm,
And I go like, okay, well, we might be able to get $3 leads to join your email list, but you don't have anything to sell them. So don't have any, you know, expectations of generating a lot of revenue from this. So that's kind of like that other conversation that some people kind of miss or overlook when they're getting started.
mm. What kind of creative right now is most effective, would you say, on Meta? Is it video or images, or is it more to do with your offer than anything else?
I think it's more to do with the offer. I think it is a combination because if you take, I like to look at creative as kind of like creative concepts and creative angles.
Mm,
If I have an angle, let's say how to add $2,000 to $5,000 of revenue through writing on Substack.
mm,
I can use that in a variety of different creative applications. I
mm,
can speak that visually, and I can also put it up in an image. I think that different ones of those are likely going to resonate with different pockets of the audience. So if you put out videos, it's going to get shown to people that watch videos. If you do it as an image, it's going to go out and be shown to more people that view images and click on images.
mm,
I think testing both, but anytime I'm getting started with somebody, the thing that I want to do first is I want to validate if it works as quickly as possible.
mm,
So I try and go out with something that's very direct. So if you have a landing page that's like download, these 15 headlines to be able to increase your open rates by 35%.
mm,
I want your ad to say something that is like almost identical to that. So the person clicking on the ad wants that. So when they get to the landing page, they're going to convert. So I would likely test that in both ways, where we're going to take an image where it's either like a visual representation of your offer. So I call that kind of like a product in action, or they're also referenced as like e-covers,
mm,
where you like make this PDF look like it's like a physical thing with copy over it with a headline.
mm,
Also, sticky notes work very, very well. If you scroll organic feeds, you'll see a lot of people where they're like handwriting little things.
mm,
It's super organic. It works very well from an advertising perspective. It's one of the creative concepts I test with everybody that we do is like, let's put their hook or their message on a sticky note.
mm,
And then I'll do like a direct to offer video. So like face to camera, like just literally like almost like a direct call to action because I want to know through that flow. I want to have as much continuity as possible from the person clicking on the ad to going to the landing page. And I want to know like if our lead cost is high, if that doesn't work, then there's a mismatch. Likely people aren't interested in that specific thing. So
mm,
now we have to go up and get a little bit more of a more specific, more relevant offer, which is likely a lead magnet or kind of like the hook and frame of what the newsletter is. But those are kind of the way I approach getting started.
Mm. It's fantastic, Landon. This is a bit of a mini masterclass here today, and advertising. This is great. No, fantastic. I mean, I've been dabbling with paid ads for years. I never really got the hang of it properly. I've probably wasted money on stuff over the years. Sometimes I feel like I am getting it, and something kind of clicks. You're like, oh, this is great, and then it just kind of fizzles out and doesn't really go anywhere. So it's good to have this kind of conversation with you today. I wanted to ask as well, in terms of building an audience. So obviously people listening to this podcast or watching this video later are probably likely people who are interested in growing an audience and growing a personal brand. Um, what is the best kind of converter? So is it like a free download? Is it a like a mini course? Is it some sort of resource? What is most likely, do you think, to A, get someone to click through on an ad, and then B, get them to actually want to convert and stay on your list in long term?
So just to kind of keep the frame, an audience builder in terms of like email list,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that frame, I would say between those, they would all work. What we want to think about is two things. It's going to be specificity and it's going to be speed of result.
Mm,
So a lot of people try and think of, I want to put as much value as I possibly could. So here's a mini course, here's a 100-page ebook. The trouble with that is people aren't going to consume it. And if they don't consume it, they're not going to get the result. If they don't get the result, they're not going to take any further action with you.
mm,
So they may be able to get people jumping into it, downloading it for very cheap. But when we look at, that's not the only goal. The goal of getting people onto our email list is to make money. And if the people joining our email list don't want to take that next step with us in the customer journey, then it's kind of useless and it's for nothing. Not necessarily wasted money, but we haven't put together an optimized customer journey because it's not getting them to take that next step with us.
mm,
So oftentimes something that's a little bit more of a blueprint, a short training, even a checklist, if it can be super specific to the person that's downloading it so that they can get an immediate result, it's going to be far more effective regardless of what it is.
mm,
So like if, let's say, for example, I've done this in the past, like you're scrolling through social media and you see something that is just like exactly solving the problem that you are looking to solve in that moment.
mm,
So like let's say you are, I'm just trying to come up with like a relevant example. Like you just joined Substack and somebody is like, you need recommendations.
mm,
And you're like, you've been thinking about this and you're just scrolling Facebook and you see an ad that says, send this 10-word message to get 7 recommendations by tomorrow.
mm,
And you're going to be like, shit, like, yeah, like I'm going to download that because like this is literally the problem I'm trying to solve right now. Versus someone saying, learn how to grow your audience,
mm,
or like, tired of your content not doing good. Here's the 3-step plan that I used,
mm,
where those can still garner a little bit of intent, but they're so broad. There's no differentiation to things on like to everybody else. The message just gets watered down because everybody else is saying the exact same thing.
mm,
We can overcome that just being hyper specific with our message. And this is where a lot of people they get worried because we're told to niche down and people are worried about missing out on things.
mm,
So I was having a conversation with a client just yesterday, actually, or no, on Monday. And part of what she's in the personal development space and she runs a coaching program that's $5,000 and she helps women overcome stress and overwhelm to be more present in their lives.
mm,
Now, we think of stress and overwhelm. I can't name somebody that doesn't resonate with that. So they're like, I work with everybody. I work with stay-at-home moms. I work with people that work. I work with all of these different people. But it's like, how can we craft a message that is hyper specific to that person
mm,
so that when they see it in their feed, they want to watch it?
mm,
So then we went down through this thing. It's like, okay, well, what are the challenging scenarios in their lives? How does stress show up to them? Like if you were to, cast a like a movie or like a scene in a movie, what would overwhelm look like? What is the image of it so that we can pull that into their mind?
mm,
So we're coming up with messaging like, you know, driving home from work, craving a glass of wine just to take the edge off before stepping into the house with your family, sitting in the car in the parking lot after work just for 10 minutes of silence before going home to your busy family,
mm,
feeling like you need a week, a vacation after your weekend because you haven't had any time to wind down.
mm,
All of these things that are just so much more specific. Now, that's in the personal development space where we're not necessarily giving quick wins. So we can get a little bit different. We can get a little bit more tactical when we're talking about marketing because we can talk about very specific results.
mm,
So I've talked with other writers who are talking about how do we craft an offer to monetize their Substack audience and things like that. And it's like, well, I'm going to teach writing.
mm,
It's like, okay, it's great. Like a lot of people want to learn how to write, even myself. I'm always looking how to get better at writing. But it's like, what is writing going to allow them to accomplish?
mm,
What's one thing right now that we can get hyper specific and craft a result around to get them on that journey quicker? So it's like things that I'm personally looking for are, okay, how do I improve my hooks?
mm,
Or how do I come up with like a content plan so that I know that my content is going to be better? So coming up with things that are a lot more specific to what people are trying to solve just allows that message to resonate more. And not only does it have a higher conversion rate, it also creates a shorter bridge to that next step, which is where we're going to be making money with what we're trying to accomplish through generating leads.
mm. Fantastic. Brilliant, brilliant advice. I love this so much. I want to ask as well, Landon, about so this is just obviously everything you said there. I have so many questions about that, but I'm going to try and focus on one thing. In terms of advertising on other platforms to build an email list on Substack, again, I'm focusing more on Substack now because my Substack audience is going to be listening to this mostly. Um, can you advertise? This is maybe a really basic question, but can you advertise on, say, Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn about Substack? As in, is someone on one of those platforms going to see that ad and then want to click through to find out more about Substack? Or is it better to just focus at your advertising efforts on one platform about that platform itself? So talk about Facebook on Facebook, talk about LinkedIn on LinkedIn. Can you cross-pollinate things in terms of advertising between like say Meta and Substack?
Yes, absolutely.
Mm,
I've put a lot of thought into this and I'm still trying to work through how do I come up with the best way to grow the Substack audience through paid advertising?
mm,
So, a couple things that I recommend everybody do is go into, if you have a Facebook business manager and you have a pixel and an ad account, is go into your settings on your Substack profile, even if you're not running ads, but like add your Google Tag Manager, add your Facebook pixel, because it triggers a lead and it pixels every single person that reads one of your posts
mm,
or subscribes to your Substack. So you can actually run ads and see if they're subscribing, but you can also retarget people because Facebook is pixeling everybody engaging on your Substack page. So you could run ads just to the people that are engaging. So I think it's
mm,
something a lot of people aren't aware of, but it's like do that and then it's out of the way and it's just kind of there in the background. But what I want to think of is I want to try and find the message that's going to be most relevant. So when I started looking and testing this, I went, what are my most popular posts on Substack?
mm,
What is the message that I'm talking about? Because if we think we're pushing them to Substack, but we're not necessarily talking about Substack. So for example, if your message, you have how to grow on Substack, but you also how to be a solopreneur.
mm,
Being a solopreneur is relevant to everybody.
mm,
So how to grow specifically on Substack is you could still run that ad, but it's going to be more narrow, but that's okay. Maybe it just we don't spend as much money.
mm,
But we can talk to writers, but we would want to then position because we're trying to pull them off Facebook. So if I'm trying to talk on Facebook about how to grow on Substack, I want to try and think of, okay, what's the common advice that they're being told that isn't working for them?
mm,
And how can I create this as like a new opportunity?
mm,
So, for example, for me, I've written posts that did very well around how many subscribers I gained from a post on Substack and how much that would have cost me if I was running Facebook ads.
mm,
So I can craft specific messages that will land to be relevant for that person.
mm,
when they're looking at it. Now, if I have something that is broadly applicable, so talking about solopreneurship, growing businesses, I talked about 19 ways to monetize when you don't have a product, because I was getting all these messages of people saying like, I want to make money, but I don't have anything to sell. And I was
mm,
like, okay, well, what would I do if that was me? And it was me at a point, and I had gone through it. So I created it into a piece of content, and it's my highest performing post. So I was like, okay, I'm going to run ads with that message, driving people to my Substack. And I was getting leads for $2 or $3 on Substack or on Facebook,
mm,
driving people. Now there's a lot of little issues because the way that people land on on Substack is a little buggy when you're driving them from Facebook ads. It kept saying it was like a non-functional landing page. Sometimes I couldn't figure out like when the subscribe box would pop up and when the subscribe box wouldn't pop up, which
mm,
link to use for the post. So there's some like little technical things that I was trying to work through with like how to leverage an actual Substack article.
mm,
But I think your top performing content is always a gold mine for paid advertising. I
mm,
have a free training called Content to Cash where I talk about how to turn like your top performing Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok content into ads, or how to pull insights from that to be able to craft high converting ads. Because
mm,
if it did well organically, there's a reason. And it's
mm,
because there was some piece of resonance in that piece of content.
mm,
So that's how I would look at that. But if we take a step back, we don't have to drive them directly to Substack.
mm,
We can drive them to a lead magnet or just an opt-in for the newsletter.
mm,
And then we can import that weekly or whatever we want into our Substack audience because we have those capabilities.
mm,
So if you look at like Matt, I believe it's Matt McGarry. He's
mhm.
got the newsletter operator
Yep.
newsletter, and he runs Facebook ads. And it's like, how to grow your newsletter. So it's very top of mind, especially for creators. And if we
Mm,
think about it, you and I, we still scroll Instagram, we still scroll Facebook. So we see those ads, even though that we're running newsletters.
mm,
And obviously his, I believe, is on Beehive, I think.
mm,
So either on Beehive or Kit. So he just has like the ad goes to an opt-in and they join the email list.
mm,
If that was a Substack email list, they would join and then we would just be importing them, or we would have some automation. I don't think we can automate it on the back end yet with Substack, but we would just import it on a like weekly basis.
mm,
Or we can do the same with a lead magnet. And that's where I would come into like specificity. What is like one hyper specific thing that I can give them? And then look at pulling them onto your broader email list, or looking at how can you use your welcome sequence and indoctrination sequence to start to pull them over and
mm,
allow them to like self-identify with that, which is what I would do in like, you know, you would just start talking about your top performing content, linking back to it, generating curiosity, linking back to it. And that's a strategy I would use with anybody in like a post opt-in sequence.
mhm,
Is we just want to pull people closer to us. We want to build more trust, to build more rapport. So like I'm sending emails that are like a little bit of a hook, generating some curiosity, and it's going out to like a live I did with somebody. Like
mm,
once this is published, I'm going to share this with my email list.
mm,
And then it's going to also give you a benefit because I'm going to expose them to you. But it also gives people an ability who potentially just opted in for something to now see a 30, 60-minute conversation with me, see how I think, see how I operate. And once they align, that trust starts to build and it
mm.
brings people closer to taking that next step with me.
How important do you think that is in today's age? People actually seeing your face and hearing your voice, and when you're trying to market to them.
I wish I could say I didn't think it was important because I love writing so much.
Mm,
And it's actually been very eye-opening for me in terms of the level of connection I've been able to create with people through just written word without this.
mm,
But since I started going live, and I've done numerous podcasts in the past and I've done stuff on YouTube, I don't necessarily think it is the hearing your voice or seeing your face alone. I think part of it is also depth of content.
mm,
It's you can build a following off of 50 character or 50 word notes or tweets or whatever. But when you go into a 3,000 word article and you're posting those one or two times a week, it's giving people so much more
mm,
that builds so much more trust in your abilities to be able to help them. I think a really important note there is the goal of what we're trying to achieve.
mm,
Now, if we're just trying to build an audience for fun, if we're trying to just build an audience to, we want to have a paid subscription just to share our written work,
mm,
form of self-expression, I think those are very different than trying to use the medium to grow a business.
mm,
And when we're trying to grow a business, trust, safety are so important.
mm,
And that's where building a personal brand and that depth of content really, really is beneficial.
mm,
But the truth of it is not everybody reads. There's going to be people that would prefer to watch something. There's going to be people that would prefer to listen to something. And there's going to be people that will do all of them.
mm,
So it not only gives you more touch points, it gives you the ability to appeal to people that consume information in different means. They might hang out in different worlds, but like there is science to show the level of connection that's created when we can make eye contact with somebody.
mm,
There's also nuance to the conversation we're having. There's so many little things or questions you could ask or little insights I can give that would never show up in written word because
mm,
it is in this conversational format. And David Perel from How I Write actually made a really, really good post when he closed down his writing program and said he really thinks that these mediums are going to only grow with the rise of AI because as people can start to use artificial ways to bolster the written content, you can't necessarily do that when you're seeing us face to face. I can't use AI to answer your question when
mm,
I'm live with you. You know what I mean? Or like this is just a real authentic conversation. So I think there is an element to that that can't be replicated elsewhere.
mm,
So I don't necessarily think that it's required, but I highly believe and strongly believe that it will bolster what you're trying to create.
mm. And do you talk about everything we talked about today in your book, Landon, as well? Yeah,
So it's a
or
very
parts of it?
interesting question. Very interesting question. So my book was written initially when it was started. It was written for people that were media buyers or business owners running ads.
Mm,
As I started to go through it, I really kind of just seen how this is like, if you zoom out a step, it's really more of just like a business strategy book.
mm,
Now, not everybody needs to run paid advertising, but we can't argue that if we have the ability to run paid ads, if we can do it effectively, it only bolsters what we're doing.
mm,
So it goes through what I refer to as like the pyramid of profitability. So it's going to be a combination of like your traffic. So this focuses on effectively paid media in combination with like the creative and your offers. So being able to architect an offer that's going to be able to get somebody to convert. It goes into your back end automation. So something that I see a lot of people, even with that are running paid ads, they don't have an ecosystem on the back end. Like after they become a lead, after they watch the webinar, what happens?
mm,
Are you sending regular emails? Are you running little trainings to them on the back end to be able to give them another opportunity?
mm,
It also goes into branding, which has the highest profitability of anything that we can do. It's what I think is the only thing that can overpower a really bad offer is brand. Like
mm,
if people know who you are and they want to get closer to you, you can run an ad that says anything and someone's going to buy. I think of somebody like Tony Robbins has had some of like the worst, most vague, broad ads ever where it's just like elevate. I'm like, I don't like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean elevate? But people purchase because they just know Tony Robbins. They're like, I want to, yes, I want to be a part of whatever he's doing.
mm,
And then we have economics, which is definitely misunderstood. A lot of people don't quite understand what it is. It's one of the simplest things once you understand how it works,
mm,
increasing average order value, increasing the lifetime value of a customer, understanding that these things play such a vital role in like if you're running ads, you don't have anything to sell.
mm,
Well, you're not going to make money from it. If you
mm,
only have something that's $27, I don't think you should run paid ads to it. You should probably go organic.
mm,
But when you look at the simplest way to increase your revenue, if you have a reach and have an audience, is by manipulating the economics of your business.
mm,
So when I talk to a Substack bestseller and they're like, I want to add $2,000 to $5,000 a month in revenue.
Mm,
I'm not looking at how do we get more paid subscribers or how do we post more content. I'm looking at how do we make more money from your paid subscribers.
mm,
You don't have to do anything. We have to just come up with an offer, put it into a Google Doc, put out a simple hand raiser message in a dark post to your paid subscribers. And if you have 200 people that are already paying you $20 a month, I'm fairly positive that one person will pay you
mm,
2,000 a month. So like it's just these little things from an economic standpoint. So with the businesses that I'm working with, a lot of them are like high six figures into the seven figures,
mm,
and they're relying on just paid advertising. And it's like, you can't just rely on that single thing anymore. It's
mm,
creating this actual solid strategy of pulling all of these components in. So while the book is written for through the lens of somebody running paid ads, it pulls in all of these things that I think anybody looking at it could get a really good understanding of the benefits of these, regardless of where our business is.
mm. Where can people buy the book? Is it on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. I was super excited to be able to like have like a book. Like ebooks seem the same as like a Kindle book. So I wanted to like I want to write an actual book. I want it to be more than
Physical?
like
Yeah.
37 pages. I want to be able to hold it in my hand. So yeah, it's available on Amazon. I don't have it available anywhere else at this time. So it can be downloaded as or it can be bought as Kindle or as a paperback version.
Nice. I'll put a link to it in the show notes after this as well. People can check it out. No, Landon, that's fantastic. I get the feeling like I could just talk to you about this all day, or just listen to you tell me these things because this is a gold mine of information for anyone who's interested in this kind of stuff, for sure. And anybody who is watching this today, please go and check out Landon's publication. Landon, tell me a little bit about your publication, just as we kind of come towards the end. Tell me what kind of stuff you're doing at Substack right now that's working for you, and what you're excited about in the future.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. So I publish like pretty much where like my like home online now is Substack. It's kind of where I've pulled most of my efforts into. And also like for one, because it was like the simplest and most clear path forward. Two, I didn't want to have to worry about all of those other components, like designing an image for every single post I put on LinkedIn, trying to get professional photos done for all of my posts on Instagram, and like having to worry about video editing or hiring a team to do that. So I was like, I just want to write. I was like, I'm
Mm,
going to figure out just how to write. When I started, I was posting a little bit about everything. So I recently actually kind of split my like more paid advertising focus off into like a separate publication,
mhm,
just because I was finding that my audience on Substack is a lot more kind of like creator focused, writer focused. And while I have a background in a lot of paid media, I have a passion for brand building.
mm,
And I view writing as a form of brand building. So you're building an audience, you're getting subscribers, you're getting followers, you're putting out this in-depth long form content. Substack has this beautiful combination of like, it's a website with your publication page, it's a social media platform with notes, plus it's your long form content, kind of like a quasi email list with your posts.
mm,
So it's got this beautiful little ecosystem in there. So I share a lot about effectively business growth, audience growth, generating more money, being able to monetize and grow your business is kind of like, I would say, kind of like a trifecta of kind of the content that I put out.
mm,
But the underlying message is I really try and teach through my own personal stories and personal experiences. I've been in business for about 19 to 20 years, almost 2 decades now. I've done a lot of stuff. And like the biggest through line is I've never viewed myself as being successful. I've watched so many friends join masterminds at the same time, go on to be create seven-figure businesses more than once, more than one friend consult me on how to do it, and I'm helping them and guiding them and giving them business plans, and they're doing it, and I just couldn't figure it out.
mm,
It's taken me a lot longer to figure things out. I move slower. I've learned so much about me, and I try and normalize success and failure, and just sometimes things take longer than we want them to.
mm,
Sometimes the marketing messages we see out there are very persuasive and they're designed to just monetize us. Trying to normalize that message for people and really try and get people to think about just being consistent, finding what works for them, being okay knowing that I'm going to do this, it might not work. Like I read Russell Brunson's books multiple times, and it was probably 4 years before it like ever clicked for me.
Mm,
And it's like sometimes that's just the way it is.
mm,
Like maybe somebody else can go and grow faster and do it better, but that was never me. So I don't try and come out and be hypey and make these promises of these get rich quick marketing tactics. I really try and pull everything through. Like, I have a post on like how I don't rely on motivation or like my top like no hustle like Substack growth strategies. Because what's
mm,
really worked for me is just like the basic stuff. I've tested a lot of things and it's like these few things worked and it's like just the consistency of doing it. And people
mm.
sending me messages and they're like, "Oh, how long have you been doing this?" And I'm like, "I posted for 10 months before I started to grow on Substack." So when somebody messages me and they're like, "I can't grow," and I'm like, "Well, you haven't posted a note and you've posted three articles because you've been here for 2 weeks." I'm like, you just gotta like you gotta
Take your
play the
time.
game a little bit more. Yeah, like sometimes it takes time. There's people that started Substack after me that have grown way faster and their publications are bigger than mine and they exist, but it's never been me. So I have a soft spot for trying to like help the me of the past
Mm,
that wanted to grow faster, that really found a lot of like jealousy and envy and comparison to the people that seemed to just it just worked. It clicked.
yeah.
Um, that was never me. It just like it didn't, I don't know, it didn't click. I feel
Mm,
like I'm a fairly intelligent guy, but it's always taken longer. And I've really tried to lean into that and be like, just trust in the path. So I try and put as much of like a positive message centered around that out as I can.
mm. Usually at the end of these podcast episodes, I ask the person I'm speaking to for a sort of a golden nugget of advice as we're finishing up. But I think what you said in the last sort of 5 minutes is a very, very nice way of bookending this and framing everything you've already said. I love the idea of just taking your time and slowing down and doing things at your own pace and not comparing yourself with anybody else because everybody's journey is different. Everyone goes at a different speed. And I think that's a really, really nice way to finish this conversation, Landon. I love everything you've said. I think it's been so, so helpful. I think anyone who's interested in using paid ads or just finding ways to market themselves in a gentler way, I think it may be a good way of describing it, in a more comfortable, approachable way. You're the kind of person they should be following and should be interacting with. So, again, audience, if you're listening, please go follow Landon after this and subscribe to his publication. Landon, thank you so much for this time. It's been so good. Um, and yeah, just maybe just to finish up, actually, what is one thing you've got coming up in the next maybe like few weeks that you're maybe working on right now, or is there anything you're working on, or are you just kind of carrying things on as it is?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
Mm,
So it's kind of interesting because, things just kind of start to compound in ways that you didn't expect. So I've started to, as I've grown and I've started to speak more, and then I've started to do some interviews, and then when just these things that happen, but it's different when they actually start happening to you. Like I'm doing interviews, and then more people are asking me to do interviews. So I have like 8 or 9 speaking engagements coming up for like
yes, saw that on your
podcasts
on
and
your
joint
notes.
lives and things
Yeah.
like that, which is really exciting. So I have a lot of collaborations coming up. I'm working on a new course called the Minimalist Monetization Loop, which is
Mm,
effectively how I've kind of come to just watch my, email leads, lead magnets, and product sales start to grow. So that'll be like my next course that's more specific to growth on monetizing Substack coming out. It's probably going to not be out for a little bit. It'll probably take me a month or two to get the course created, since I don't have an abundance of time to just settle in, and I'm not going to work till midnight to get it out there. Just kind of reinforcing our message that we had. So that's coming up, and other than that, I am just really trying to continue to just get really solid content out there. And something I've just been loving is just like the messages I'm getting.
mm.
If anybody sees impersonator accounts of me, please let me know because that's become a real issue.
Yeah,
Something I
yeah.
never
I saw one.
expected. I've seen there's been 6 now. So,
Oh,
but yeah, this journey has been just so incredible, and like the speaking engagements, the just the art of writing and just seeing what comes up, like the courses that I've been able to create, the products and things like that have just literally come from just putting words on paper, and these things just start to come and form, and the clarity around them comes. And it's been so incredible to put that out there and try and help others on this journey.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on everything you've been doing so far. It's fantastic. And congratulations on having one of the best beards I've ever seen as well. It's a very impressive beard you got there as well. But yeah, Lana, thanks so much for this time. It's so good to chat. And I'm looking forward to connecting with you going forward on Substack and seeing what you're up to.
Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much. It was great to chat.